You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Perfections, ooh, Sin City, Montana, Coke Boys, ooh, we run the city. Homie tryna keep up, ooh, they going broke. I'll finish your career, ooh, get a rope.
Warning, 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 warning.
Dope money, ooh.
That Montega
In the spot, getting dropped, ooh.
that's hard labor.
In the club, popping bottles,
Yeah, we blowing that sour.
handful of real niggas.
Rest of these niggas cowards.
How you want it?
How you want it?
Hands, gun, or the knife.
Soon as your man see the barrel,
He gon' run for his life.
bullets flying.
Bullets flying.
Hello, YouTube. Hello, MGTOWs. This is me, Baron Yam, and joining me is Red Pill in the Wind, aka MGTOW in the Wind. This
How
is
are
the
y'all
bleeding,
doing?
yeah, this is the Bleeding Edge, and we're here today on a lovely Easter, celebrating. Hope everyone's celebrating and doing their thing, and we want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers and new listeners, and shout out to Win for setting this this Bleeding Edge up. Thank you,
All
Win.
right. The
Sorry I
topics
didn't
are,
let you talk that much on the last stream.
hey, it's what it is,
I had a lot to get off my chest.
right? But the topics are holding
Ahoy,
accountability. The current topics are holding accountability for self and others, and dictating the content of others, and last but not least, image association. So who wants to take this off? You know,
Yeah. Hey Billy, what's going on?
Hey guys.
I'm gonna try to see if I can send Infamous a link quick.
hey Billy.
Yo.
Lone Wolf.
I'm just settling down over here.
How's your Easter going there, Billy?
We made a Easter egg, which was interesting. A bit of chocolate molds and trying to work out how to get these molds to these two halves to join as one.
What you do is you take whatever mold, you heat both sides up, not to the point where you melt the chocolate, you just melt a layer of it, just a small layer of it, and then you put it together.
Well, the way we did it was, I didn't know this about chocolate, so I got a saucepan of water, a bowl, chocolate, fine, chocolate melted, great. And while I was messing around with one half of the mold, I just left the chocolate with a little bit of heat on it, and I thought, just keep it liquid, right? But when I went to do the second half, it turned out I kind of like overcooked it. So from going to a liquid, it kind of started to solidify again. So I was like, okay, lesson learned there.
Double boiler system.
Yeah, don't like cook the hell out of it. You just want to quite literally just melt it and take it off the stove, and it'll stay liquid for quite a while. Turns out, I thought it'd re-solidify pretty quick. But then I had these two halves with melted chocolate in it. And I was like, how do I get this to sort of fuse together? So I
Ice water.
yes, I
You gotta
put two
bring it
halves
back.
together,
Yeah.
rotated it around a little bit to get the sort of seam coated, and then I shoved it in the freezer, and that done the trick. So a little Easter lesson on how to do the chocolate eggs.
Yeah, chocolate is tough, man. I just remember when you if your chocolate bar melts and then it gets hard again, yeah, sometimes you gotta throw it in the freezer or something just to like get it to like reconstitute again, and then you can like bring it out. But yeah, that's what like Cake Boss and like all those cooking shows are about. It's like all about getting the chocolate
Yeah.
like fondue to just be like the right consistency because it's so difficult to get it perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You need
yeah,
a fondant.
the fondant, right?
yeah. There was like in the end, there was thin sections like the shell, and then there was like a big lump of chocolate where it kind of like settled to the bottom.
Yeah. But
Goodness.
like I said, let's start with holding accountability of self and others.
Right here.
Yeah, right on.
Like,
Well, yeah. Sorry, that was a extraneous noise. Yeah, I was having this thought as I was taking a nap because that last stream was like I hadn't been going on a lot of sleep, and I was like trying to get out between. There was like a few things that have been that have happened that have kind of like made it so where I just had a lot to get off my chest. But a thought that I had like when I was reflecting on it was like about a couple uh cycles ago they were talking about like the abundance mindset and versus the scarcity mindset. This is back when like the main topic was on like rejection and dating and pickup artistry, uh which I guess what you could assume is like it's still relevant now. It's just it's been moved off into like this corner of where you got like all these like dating coach shows when it used to be just like individual people. Now it's like people have entire like programs and stuff based on dating. And then you have like Kevin Samuels, who has like a whole thing based on like setting up men to be targets for women, like high value targets. Like you got the skee ball in the center, that's 1,000 points, you know. But like the whole abundance mindset thing is, I guess what like prevents people from.
yeah, for now I gotta go get some.
Hello.
Sorry about that.
I was like, wait, I was like, that seems very off the conversation, but yeah, I think like people are not willing to hold themselves accountable because they fear for what they might lose from being held accountable. Like many times on this show, for example, people are afraid of coming on, or they're afraid of talking about the topics because they might end up being held accountable in the process of talking about the topics. So it's kind of like they're they want to be honest and they want to be authentic, but there's a chance that in that process that they'll encounter like
Threat.
a real self image. And what's up, D man, JR, the rest of the
Welcome
people in
back.
the comments? Welcome back, you guys. So I don't know if you heard that win, but I think it's the abundance. There really is a lack of that important idea from the pickup artist community that exists now. There's hardly any of that kind of mindset going around. It's always like be careful and don't have too much fun and don't stray off the beaten path. It's almost become like elder wisdom now instead of being like I guess coming from like a more youthful perspective.
The thing
If that
is,
makes sense. Because you got so many people that have been invested for such a long time that they're like kind of the stakes are a bit higher, and so there's more like this perceived scarcity, and that's why people are trying to make full use of their ID, or they're trying to get the full use out of what they invested in, as opposed to, I guess, trying to like scrap it and take it
look,
and start over, which might include taking accountability.
you're not gonna get the full use out of everything that you have, you know, because in order to get the full use out of everything that you have to be there, you have to bought it, day one, like straight from the factory, picked it up at the factory and drive it home. You know, and then you have to be there on the final days when something gives out on it and totals it out without, you know. But the thing is like these people don't have. The manosphere has lost any idea what accountability is. Any concept of accountability. You know?
The trouble with accountability is it's only like an acknowledgement. It doesn't, on its own, it doesn't really do anything. It's what precedes it that kind of matters more. So, for example, like you can't really take any responsibility or be responsible until you're first accountable. But you could argue it's sort of the snake eating its tail. I mean, you need a level of responsibility in order to then be accountable. But for someone to acknowledge their participation in something, their accountability in something, can be quite scary for them because of what it entails afterwards. It's like, oh, if I have to be accountable, what are the consequences? So it's this, it's a sort of try to avoid accountability is to avoid the future ramifications of what it will lead into.
Yeah.
Well, even
Well,
if
similarly,
you
like
avoid
a child,
Yeah.
we don't really hold, or not necessarily hold them accountable. Like they're not if something is like terrible were to happen, we don't necessarily hold them responsible because they might not have known better.
Right. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Quite often, people who are avoidant of accountability don't see it like that. They have this even younger infantile mindset of like, oh no, I'm going to be punished. When it's like, no, we just need to know who is responsible, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a punishment. We just need to know who it is. We need to direct our attention or our inquiry to, or who is supposed to keep a record or whatever.
or it could just be a learning experience, you know? Like
That's what it's fundamentally meant to be about, really. It's be accountable because there is a lack of awareness where this person doesn't realize that they should be accountable, and in turn they should be somewhat responsible for that accountability, which also means that they should be interested in wanting to become more aware. So it would be nice to see someone actually turn around and say like, hey guys, have I messed up? Do I need to be held accountable? Because I don't know, maybe I made a boo-boo somewhere. So that's someone who is willing, showing an interest in not just taking responsibility of a situation or an issue or something like that, but it's also a self-interest because they want to make sure that they're following either like a moral code or they're holding true to themselves in some way. So really, by wanting to be accountable, or even if someone's holding you accountable, it's an opportunity for like improvement, self-esteem boosting, integrity, and things like this. So it shouldn't really be looked at as now you're in trouble and you're going to be punished. I mean, and even if it was the case that like now you're in trouble and you're going to be punished, if you're someone who is like a manly man or stoic or someone who believes in integrity, then you would understand the function that the reason why the punishment is being dished out to you, and you would accept it. You'd be like, yeah, I do deserve a laceration for that, or I do deserve a penalty or a fine or imprisonment or whatever. I messed up.
But nobody wants to be held accountable anymore. Nobody wants. Well, they want to be accountable for the stuff that goes right, never for the things that go wrong.
Yeah. They want to be praised, but they can't take the criticism.
For escaping danger. Yeah.
Yeah, hey D man and everyone, JR. Yeah, and it shows you that their idea of accountability being one-sided like that isn't really a proper form of accountability. It's basically I want a pat on the back or a biscuit. Here's a doggy treat, and don't make me feel ashamed of myself, because essentially what it comes down to is people with like an ultra low sense of self, their self-esteem and insecurity. So when they hear something like you're being held accountable, like hey you're you're being judged here, now it's like uh-oh, I don't have anything in my defenses to protect me, so I'm going to be a coward about it.
Yeah, I know. I also noticed too when there were times where I was not feeling not feeling quite accountable for my actions or something. I remember there's also like a component to accountability that has to do with other people acknowledging and understanding something about you. Because a lot of how people view it, especially people who have been drugged through the court system, is like whenever they hear accountable, they picture like a jury of people that they don't relate to, deciding on their fate, one way or the other. And it's kind of like it represents this moment in time where you are being judged, as
Yeah,
opposed to a group of people coming together to try to understand or get to the bottom of what
that's right.
exactly
So there
transpired.
is like a built-in shame, even though it might be unintentional, but it's
So
like a
yeah,
built because like you're being held to a standard that is not your own. So you're being held to like the judicator standard, and it might be a bit ambiguous. You're not too sure what it is they think, but you're meant to conform to it. So essentially, you kind of depending on the kind of person, but typically this person who wants to avoid accountability will be shame based. So they'll interpret it as like, well, I don't follow their standard, their criteria. That means there must be something wrong with me, and I should feel bad about that. I should be embarrassed by my behavior. Ergo, I should be ashamed of myself. And then it's this shame response, which is making them want to deflect away from accountability. So then they sort of tie the two together. So it's like whenever they hear the words that, hey, you're going to be accountable, they're thinking, uh-oh, I'm about to get shamed.
The thing is, accountability, especially in the manosphere, has a bad image based on from the court systems. You know, from the court system, accountability has gotten a bad rap. You know, because
Here, accountability, they think something negative. They're quick to
Yeah.
bite on the negativity train. They're quick to say that, oh yeah, they're holding me accountable for something that is basically not even under my control. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. It does have
Like,
that kind of negativity about it. I mean, it sounds a bit weird if, like, let's say, like, Win, I was going to hold you accountable for the excellent truck driving you did earlier today. You'd be
okay,
like, that's not really accountable. That would be kind of like praise. You're giving me praise, right? It's like, well,
right,
it's actually accountability. It's like a positive accountability as opposed to a
right,
negative.
right. Like yeah, I'm holding you accountable for the wonderful job you did herding wet angry cats. I ain't never seen nobody herd pile wet angry cats in such in a crate so well, so
Right.
efficiently.
Yeah. I mean,
but
it
then
wasn't
it's
me that did it. It was you.
most of social most of like, especially in like a litigious society, I feel like most of that accountability is like in such a deficit that's like most people only have really kind of like bad news to report, or
Well, that's
that they
well,
like,
one.
or there's truth and transparency is such a rarity that
Well, yeah.
accountability normally can come in either it was up or down, but most of the time when the manosphere highlights it, a woman lied, a
It's-
woman deflected
right.
from the
Yeah,
truth.
It's from a woman's perspective on what she basically from a woman's perspective from a standpoint of what she could get out of that man in that particular moment
what
where
that's
he was
saying,
being.
that's saying what you're touching on there, Yam, is like it's more about the package of mental calibration or like the mental mindset of a person, more so than just the topic here of accountability. This is someone who's like a pessimist, so they're going to be always looking at things negatively or judgmental or criticism or things like that, and they're going to have probably like a bit of an aggression underpinning a lot of this behavior. And we see this, basically I'm going to start talking that stuff where they're in that vulnerable category, they're survivalistic mindset, they're likely codependent, they've got narcissistic traits and things like that. So this results
That's
in it.
ultimately what the repackaged leads to. They end up in a like you said, survivalistic mindset.
Yeah, and victimhood. So it's like when I hear the word accountability, they automatically go, "Uh-oh, I'm about to be shamed, and I'm going to be victim or victimized."
Strawberry.
So they already kind of switch into this. It's kind of like contradicting what I said earlier about they don't have a defense mechanism to handle criticism, even if it's constructive criticism.
Right.
This is the defense mechanism of like, uh-oh, I'm going to shut down and go into victimhood mindset because I have no other way of dealing with being held accountable.
Because your image of accountability has already been tainted.
Yeah, and another thing too is they think as a group, we think that by making these videos holding women accountable, that we're like dealing a death blow to the gynocracy. We're like making such amazing strides that it's almost like it's overinflated it into being like, as soon as we couldn't accept, like it's almost like it's like, yeah, like anytime we say like, oh, this woman needs to be held accountable, that is like such a damaging thing to her in our eyes as a group, that
The
like
thing
we
is-
couldn't we like, it's almost like we're afraid of the same thing happening
The thing
to us.
is-
So it's like whatever we can do to preserve that or prevent that from happening, whether it be like hide things about us, our identity, or fabricate stories, or
Right. The thing is,
use intimidation tactics. Like that's
the
like
thing-
anything
that's
that
the
we
same
can do to
thing.
avoid.
That's the same thing. We're doing the same thing that we try to hold them accountable for.
Yeah, look, I've got an example here. I was holding some people accountable recently, and they got into a tizzy. So bear with me one moment. Right, let's see. No,
The bloody. Yep. The thing is like they're doing the same. They're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing. Just basically, you're not. You're, what? Hold on. I'll when I'm out the store, you got to be kidding me.
All right, I've got an example here. I've got an example if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a meme, and it's a picture of a strong, stunning, brave woman, and it says, "She appears to be strong, and she really is very strong. But don't think for a second that there isn't a tsunami of heartache and loss that swims through her cells." So I responded with, "Be that as it may, but is this not virtue signaling? I'm so strong, yet a victim at the same time." And I had two women who were getting upset with what I wrote for my inquiry, for me simply asking a question. And I started off by saying, like, be that as it may. Like, I'm not denying that she's not struggling with this tsunami of heartache and loss, but I'm just perplexed by how can she be strong if she has this tsunami inside her. So one woman writes to me like, denial of the effects of serious trauma is in itself a trauma response and one of victim shaming people. So she's saying I'm trying to victim shame whose shoes you don't walk in and have zero knowledge of. It smacks of conceit and a superiority complex. So someone who's wanting to basically paint me as a bad guy for asking questions. And so I wrote, well, this meme is written in third person. So if you say I don't walk in their shoes, neither does the author. I'm not denying the heartache, loss, or even that she's a victim. My point is the overinflation of being very strong. It is a common thing with people who have been victims. They suddenly have an abundance of self-importance. It is for that very reason I much do believe she has been through hard times. Is it so bad to be just human, not strong, not powerful?
Or monster, yeah, or like exactly.
The thing is,
Now,
is
wait,
like it's
hold
it's
on, hold on. Sorry, let me just finish. I would have more sympathy if she did, but if she's very strong, then what good is my sympathy? And what would be the point in telling me about the tsunami? It is one thing to be a victim, which I believe she is, but it's another thing to use that victim status to leverage people's emotions and perceptions. And by the way, nice try at trying to make this about me and discredit my point. And that shut her down.
Yeah, it is. It's a repost at the end of the day. Like that's what you're trying to tell her. What were you gonna say?
The thing is like these people do not. First off, these people come from a standpoint to where they started off on a pedestal. You know, they started off on a pedestal. Now there may be some time where they get knocked off that pedestal, but for the time being, they're gonna ride that. They're gonna ride that till that silver horse. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd actually describe that pedestal as a force field. So up until now, they thought they were protected by not having the accountability. But if now suddenly they're being held accountable, this force field protection of theirs, is going to be questionable in the future if it's going to be able to hold up.
What's going? The thing is, I said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. The people who start holding, the people who hold people accountable are always going to be replaced or outnumbered by the people that basically fuel the flames of inaccountability, of non-accountability. It's just a given fact. These people will always outnumber the people holding people accountable. You know.
Here's my like personal response to look. So D-Man says society wants to make men accountable.
For what?
Well, for everything,
For everything, it's like what I mean.
I lean into that kind of thing. I'll be like, right. So if you want to hold me accountable, therefore, I'm going to be the one that calls the shots then. Because if I'm accountable and I'm responsible, that means I'm the one in charge here, and you're going to have to do as I say. I'm not going to do as you say. Otherwise, you're the one that's going to be accountable.
Right.
So you kind of use that against them.
You can't hold somebody accountable and not give them a way to call the shots. You know, it doesn't work that way. That is how you get the shut-ins. Like in Japan.
You infer like by saying that someone is accountable, you're inferring that they've got some power in the situation or they've got some control. So it's like, right, if that is the case, if I have the power and control because I'm being held accountable, then shut the F up and do as I say.
Right. And it's like, look at Japan.
But that's only if you know that what you're doing is legit and on above board and like is right. If you know that they're the ones who are actually trying to bully you into some sort of manipulated, like they're trying to abuse you essentially. Like if you have effed up for reals, then accept that you're being held accountable and learn from it to do better.
As Chico would say, do better, homie. Do better.
Yeah, I think
but in this situation, it requires a level of self-awareness to know whether or not if what you've done is a genuine mistake that needs to be corrected and someone has to point it out to you, or if actually you're in the right and someone is trying to blame shift and
Yes.
abuse you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main problems that the manosphere has. Is they feel they either feel responsible or they feel responsible, so they feel like they need to shift the blame for what men will do onto women, which is like it's just a result of an indoctrination.
A more kind of tame, placid example would be something like, "Hey fellas, you've walked into the stream and your fly, your zipper is undone. So yeah, your balls are hanging out. Like, would you mind doing something about that?" And you'd be like, "Oh, thanks, Biddy, for letting me know." And you tuck your junk away and you do your flies up. So that's being held accountable. And it's like, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
So someone wants to hold you accountable. Let's say you go to the court and the judge says, "Hey, you've missed out your child payments," and it was a legitimate accident. You forgot for whatever reason. You could be like, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. I'll make that payment as soon as possible." But a lot of people we see, they're scared of that. They don't see it as a kind of like a nudge, like a oi oi, pull up your slacks and get on the ball kind of thing. They see it as a shame, an embarrassment, a criticism, made to feel inferior, made to feel like a little child. And it's like, if that's the way you want to see it, if you want to act like a little child, then that's how you're going to sort of interpret it. But in most situations, it's not really.
They spend most of their time I think they spend most of their time attacking others. I think most people who like pick and choose their battles, they don't mind being held accountable every now and again. But I think when their world is attacking is mostly focused on the negativity and spotting what's this man got going on. Oh, this dude's showing his face. Let's take a look at what he's got. Okay, he's he looks messed up. Blah 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 blah. Okay,
So
he's bad.
it says more about the level of insecurity that people are having on both sides, those who are being accused and those who are doing the holding accountable. It depends what their motives behind the action. Like someone who is insecure but is trying to hold other people accountable is trying to blame shift. They're trying to take the attention away from themselves and put other people down so that they could feel better about themselves. So we can see that kind of trying to hold people accountable is like a weapon. I mean, it might be true that that who they're accusing has messed up in some way, but that wasn't really the motivation behind pointing it out. It was to make the finger pointer, the finger wagger, feel better about themselves and shine this light of shame onto someone else rather than themselves.
It's kind of like you said. It's more like a convenient thing than it's something that they're actually passionate about.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
about somebody.
They can do. Sometimes you'll see this kind of back and forth where it's like let's say you're holding me accountable, and I go, whoa, let's not talk about me a second. What about you? Who are you to judge? That kind of thing. So I'm sort of like throwing it. I'm avoiding being held accountable and throwing it back at whoever is questioning me.
Right.
Now, sometimes it works, and now everyone's attention is on the person who originally threw out the accusation. But sometimes, but it doesn't change what's actually happening. Where it's like, like in this example, where I've deflected my accountability. I still messed up. It's just that now people aren't paying attention to it as much. So it's like sneaky tactics going on when it comes to this sort of accountability game that people.
It is, yeah. It's like it's not really like good versus bad. Really, it's more just like it's like insecure versus insecure person versus more insecure person, and it just kind of like.
Yeah, I mean the action or the incident of being held accountable should really be quite short-lived. You know, think about it. It's like you messed up, all right. You pointed it out to someone, all right. Thank you for letting me know, and that's about it. That's you know, you can hold someone accountable in a couple of minutes, have the other person acknowledge it, and move on to like right, what's going to happen next? Right now, the responsibility, now the consequence, or now the punishment. But the situation of actually accountability, that part has passed. You know, but
Right.
we don't really see that happening much. We don't see like, hey, look, I'm just gonna reprimand you for a couple of minutes to let you know what's going on. What we see is like a whole video trying to hold people accountable for like half hour, 40 minutes, like an hour or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I
it
think I
becomes a
can
whole
kind of,
production show.
yeah, it's become it's kind of a pageantry contest to see who can
It's a dog and pony
who
show.
can represent the accountability, holding people accountable the most. Like, I'm the best at
Right.
holding people accountable, or I'm the
So then it becomes more than just about holding someone accountable. It becomes more about shaming then, like digging in and hitting them while they're down. You know, I mean, it might be one thing if you're trying to hold someone accountable and it needs a bit of an explanation or elaboration, or they're not quite understanding it, so you need to kind of go over it a bit more. But it's a bit of a two-way thing. It's one thing to hold someone accountable if the other person is like well-meaning, then yeah, the whole thing could be over and done with in a couple of minutes. But if the other person is like either confrontational or denying or deflecting or things like that,
yeah.
then you're going to see it dragging out.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that you just simply cannot talk to, like, will refuse to, that'll overtalk you if you try to pull them aside, or even if you try to kind of like publicly humiliate them, they will like try to go or publicly hold them accountable, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Not
Another
humiliate.
reason
Like
why,
the
like
pillories.
in a healthy form of holding someone accountable, another reason why it would be short-lived is because the person who's holding the other accountable doesn't really want to shame or embarrass them. You know, they're doing it like, I'm holding you accountable for a functional reason, like for your improvement, for our improvement, for the company's improvement, or whatever. I don't want to downgrade you or ridicule you, because that's not really holding someone accountable. That's just basically putting them on blast and shaming them.
The thing is like
Hmm.
the pillar. I want you to. I call it. I mean, I came up. This is a theory I came up. A pillory effect. You know, or the stock. The stock. What's the thing they call where they basically chained up, put you your head and your hands on the board and had people throw rotten fruit at you.
It's along
So,
those lines of just punish. It's like somebody has to dole out the punishment, and most
Right.
oftentimes there's not a solid enough role model. So a lot of people try to take up that mantle, but they're not really
They're not.
accustomed to being, like
They're
what you
not
said,
ready for it.
hurting wet angry cats. They're
Yeah.
more like, oh, soft plushy. They get comfortable in that position of
Power.
accountability, which, like Billy said, it should only last a few moments at the
The
most.
thing is,
You kind of
they're
nudge them.
not. Not only they're not ready for it. They haven't grown. They haven't grown. They're not ready for it because they haven't grown as a person. You know, to be ready for it or be anywhere near ready for it. They're still this adolescent person trying to adult in this world. You know,
I mean, I see
and
it all the time with my kids. Like, you know, I'm like, look, pick up your socks, put the rubbish in the bin, you know, and then the kid will turn around and be like, oh, I'm struggling, it's hard, or I can't do it, or it's too, tidying up is too much work. It's like, look, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. Just kind of get it, you know, I'm not going to throw you out of the house sort of thing and disown you as my child kind of thing. Like, it's just could you tidy up your mess? Yeah, don't
look,
make a big
it's
deal
just
out of
yeah, and it's the thing is like they make a huge bloody deal out of it, and it's like,
it. And I'm
what
not,
in the world?
you know, and I'm not like condemning you as a person. I'm just highlighting like some of the actions or behaviors that are going on which need to be altered or seen to or adjusted, you know, like
It's
as my child kind of thing. I still love you and all this. So it's not. I'm not. And this is the problem because a lot of people they're acting like
Yeah.
children. They think
And it's like,
you're criticizing them as a person. It's like no, it's what you've done that has brought me to have to hold you accountable. I'm not holding your soul accountable. You know, that's when you die and go to heaven or whatever.
Yeah,
You know, when you're being judged by God or something.
yeah,
That's
that like that. That's what they see. That's what they see. Like holding accountable, especially if something's faulty or false. It's like they've joined the cancel mob by considering anything that makes them uncomfortable as hate,
right. And
like
it's like,
hatred
and it tells them
and
what, yeah.
attacks. Like
And it
holding
basically
accountable
tells them what,
doesn't sound like being attacked. You know,
and
it's
it
just but
basically,
that's
yeah,
how people will
it's
interpret.
basically what it is like they're telling you, they're dictating what you can and cannot say to people, you know?
yeah.
They're
That's why I
trying
kind
to
of like
dictate on what you can say on and offline.
yeah, and that's why it's like they try and these days in modern era, if you're trying to hold someone accountable, the person who's being actually responsible in that situation by holding someone accountable, like you know, they're trying to be like a manager or the boss or whatever. They're trying to they want order, they want structure, they want harmony. So this is part of what the reasons why they want accountability, because then things can be ordered and structured instead of chaos or random. Um, but in modern era, that person is now shaming, or that person is needs to be more considerate of the other's feelings. So you have to say it, you know, you have to tiptoe around having to hold people accountable, which is rubbish. It's placating. It's treating people like children when really you want to be. If you're holding someone accountable, you're actually trying to treat them like an adult. You know, you're trying to treat them with maturity, with you're in some ways it's a bit of a compliment if you really sort of look at it, because it's like, look, I'm trusting you with the ability to be able to be more ordered and organized, to be structured, to be
Uh,
more as part of a team, to work in harmony, to be part of a society. So that's kind of like a responsibility there, rather than like, oh no, you're someone that I don't want to hold accountable because I've got no expectations that you'll be able to live up to this accountability. So I might as well put you in kindergarten.
and so,
You
and
know?
like I said, and some people just basically say, "Oh yeah." So some people will take that as a challenge to do better. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and if they were to make the changes necessary, in theory, they should feel pretty pleased about themselves. It's like, look, I was held accountable. My behavior wasn't right. Maybe I swore in front of kids and I was told off for swearing in front of kids. So I've learned now not to swear in front of kids, and I feel pleased with myself because I've managed to exercise some self control or self restraint. You know, I've improved my interactions with age appropriate people. So this is good stuff, really. Sadly, it's not what sadly that's being because of what we were saying earlier, that when they hear the word accountability, they jump into I'm being judged, I'm being questioned, I'm not being accepted for who I am, and I feel bad, I feel ashamed for who I am.
Yeah, like
So
everybody who's touched the bleeding edge had some, like I said, had some way to had somebody holding them accountable, or basically held themselves accountable for their own
yeah,
action.
we all of us here and throughout the Bleeding Edge series have to have some level of self accountability, because we have listeners. We're on the airtime or whatever. We can't just
Haters.
give out bad information or bad advice. I mean, imagine if one of the listeners, if we gave out crappy advice and one of the listeners went off and did something stupid and said, "Oh, the Bleeding Edge told me to do it.
Billy told me, yeah, or
Billy
Yan told
told
me to
me."
do it.
Or Wind or Tico or somebody to
You know,
that nature. It would basically go downhill real quickly. It would go
right?
downhill.
So we have to monitor. I mean, like Tico said from pretty much the beginning, like, you know, try and keep the language down, like try and keep some of these uh, way we phrase certain topics, you know,
Right.
not right on the nose sort of thing. You know, Be a bit
Just
mindful
kind of
about how you speak. And being mindful
basically
is part of
speaking
being
around the
accountable.
algorithm. Speaking around the algorithm, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, the point is not to draw too much attention to yourself.
Let's we're at the 45-minute mark, and let's try to get to the
Right, next
dictating the
topic.
content of others. The next topic, you know.
Sure. I mean, that goes perfectly into it kind of like leads perfectly into talking about content because, there's only so many different things that people feel like they can interact with and they feel like they can participate in. And a lot of the things have been kind of monopolized by loud mouthing alpha brain type truth bomb
Basically,
talking.
my Johnson's bigger than yours type people.
And
You
not
know,
just that, there's like the fear mongering too. And it's like, I guess accountability is the most fear. It evokes the most fearful, set of circumstances for most people, more so than like any, black black pill agenda or something that somebody else wants to talk about, because it seems like most people are aware of all these government conspiracies and the untruths about like society and gaslighting and narcissism, and they have all of this information in their head, yet they can't clearly see a ploy being used against them to like sort of undermine their like critical thinking. And it's like I think I mentioned it before, but they're like asking for the wool to be pulled over their own eyes. Like they're already woke, but they're trying to find somebody that's even better at fooling them than all of these different elements that they're aware of. It's kind of like feeling naked almost, and like you want to find they're looking for a place where they can they don't feel as exposed. And so they come to a channel, and it's a channel that's talking about accountability, or it's a channel that's talking about stuff that's in the manosphere that's not good, and it's holding people accountable not for things that were right or predictions that they made, but for things that they were wrong about, or things that they would say would never happen that finally did, or all of the warnings and the fear mongering that never really paid off, or this like all these different coins and cryptos and stuff that people were kind of scared into investing in, and then it's tax and they come tax time and they go to pull it out, and now they're getting like a
taxed
runaround.
at the wazoo.
Yeah, it's like and now who's there? Nobody's there to really, I guess, police this type of like gatekeeping, I guess. It's like they want to be able to just fail in private, I guess, is what I've noticed. And when you make content based on celebrating failures, which is what like a lot of cultures do, I realized it. Like Hispanic, Afro Latino culture, they kind of celebrate your failures. Or like I'm not sure if it's um whether I think it's Pakistani or Afghani, or there's a culture in the Middle East where it's like if if like your kid falls on the ground, everyone like cheers, because it's like it's like highlighting like, oh yay, oh you fell, instead of like showing concern or showing like dread over the child possibly being hurt. And you see that a lot with the manosphere, like they don't want any of their shining boys to fail, because then it would reflect badly, or they don't want to see them in a vulnerable spot, because then that would reflect badly.
Yeah.
Like they want to see the MGTOW millionaires, and they want to highlight the people that are making exorbitant amounts of money or views or something, or like the
Or they
people
want
who
to.
are just like
They
so
idolize.
witty.
They
Yeah, they
idolize.
idolize people that are there. Yeah, they'd rather be in fear of somebody and respect them that way than to just like respect them and look, address them as an equal. And if they ever mess up, hold them accountable. Like just like a normal relation, like a casual relationship. All their relationships are like very grandiose.
Yeah. So, what's coming to mind as you're speaking there are the appearance of these channels and the lack of self. So, I suppose what makes a kind of good channel is when creators can be their authentic self.
Right.
They're not really having to do anything. They're not really having to put on a performance. They're speaking from within, kind of thing. So they haven't really got a shortage of content because um, someone with a sense of self hasn't really got a limitation in that regard. Whereas someone without a sense of self who is more invested in this appearance, pretending that they have substance, quite often comes up with a bit of a difficulty because they're having to, with
Like
effort,
I've
try
realized
and
that
put
people
on
can't really
a facade.
people can't really tend with ideas that they don't agree with. And so it's like a Tinder date or something. It's just like swipe left.
Well,
That's like the extent of how people interact with you if they don't find you. Whereas if I don't find you attractive, I'm gonna put you up on the big screen and then I'm gonna like go into detail because I feel like it's doing justice to the situation. Like I kind of understand that at a certain point you're gonna you're at a certain point you're gonna have to just be honest, but then like for people who can't who have to deal with the appearances, they're like they see somebody, they're like next.
well,
And it's
this is
like this
the thing.
girl said that to me once when I was working. Like I was like, I don't feel like I should date coworkers. What do you think? Like this was at the job, so it's a little bit dicey. But she was just like, next. She could, instead of dissecting instead of like pick apart the idea or have a full-fledged thought, she just like said next, as
Yeah,
in
yeah.
she's
Well, there's
putting the
no.
ball in your court. It's like that's not good enough for me. What else do you got?
Well, that's the thing because there's a lack of sense of self, then there's no appreciation for value or for people who do speak authentically, and so they kind of tend to look at everyone as if they're the same, shallow, because they themselves are shallow. So if they have a channel or they're putting out content, we see this very um, formulaic
Formulate.
formulaic way of making it. It's basically like cloning another person's channel. And if someone else, if they look at another channel and it's going off in their own direction, now there's like a fear of an abandonment or
There's the fear of somebody else
anxiety.
advancing and leaving them behind, the fear of being
Right.
left behind.
But there's also an anxiety because if they're the only person with this format, it makes them wonder if if it is a successful format. So it requires other people having similar formats, basically clones of each other, so that they can kind of blend in and have this united, basically a shared identity, a group identity. So then it's like it makes no difference. Then how do you stand out as an individual if you're basically mirroring other people? You can't. So quite often they'll have this kind of either like a malaise or a fatigue, or they hit a dead end or a wall, or there's nothing original coming out of them, and they have to regurgitate, and then it becomes boring, and listeners sort of wander off because
Make you
there's
restless.
nothing
Yeah.
being gained.
Or they basically try to shame you for rocking the boat when a boat should have been rocked a long time ago.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what is needed. It needs a good shaking up, and it needs people to realize like be individualistic when it comes to this stuff, because this is you got we're at a time when you've got a worldwide audience, the power of the internet. Each and every one can have their own channel, your own like little world. Take that opportunity and go with it.
Right.
Obviously, it's hard. It's obvious that's going to be difficult for someone who's one, they don't really have an individualistic structure about them, like they don't have a sense of self, and two, they're very frightened or
Yeah.
being by themselves as well.
I mean, I pure just like lack that understanding of like that a content needs to be formulaic. I think content needs to be consistent, but in terms of following a formula, like at some point it's like a workout. Like
you can,
you're gonna
yeah.
have to
Well,
you
yeah,
can't
but
if you do the same workout all the time,
right.
that one muscle or group is gonna be strong, but
I
then
mean,
you end up really
you
everything
can,
else supporting it is going to
like,
fail.
yeah, you can follow a sort of formula to some degree, but it helps if you're able to sort of insert your own personality there somewhere, so that you make it your own. So instead of you just copying other people, you're actually integrating what other people have done. And I'm not talking about piracy, but I mean, like, you're taking maybe their examples, like how a lot of people have intros and outros sort of thing. You go, okay, right, this is a good thing. All right, I'll create my own intro and outro, or my own slogan. I'm not just going to rip off someone's. But you're sort of following a form.
A form of flattery.
Kind of, yeah. But to connect it also to that accountability, it's easier because when you're soloing, when you're working on your own content, your own channel to express yourself truly, that's very being held accountable because it's your work, it's your channel. But if you're mimicking and blending in with the crowd, just another clone, then you can diffuse your accountability amongst the herd a lot easier. So that's another reason why some people, if they want to avoid accountability, then that's the way they'll go. They'll go with just basically copying other people's contents and not be unique, because they don't want to run the risk of suddenly having to be accountable.
Yeah,
If I'm a clone and you want to hold me accountable, I can easily go, well, yeah, well, what about all these other channels that are doing it? Because I'm doing exactly as they're doing. So
that's where I stop, because it's like, instead of holding to, I know that at a certain point, if you try to give any pushback, they're gonna say, I hear this so much from like tons of people. They're like, if anybody in the world was here listening to you, they would say that I'm right and you're wrong. It's just like that's like the kind of logic that most people use nowadays when it comes to being being an individual. It's like, well, if you're wrong to anybody else, then I have a right to shame you, as opposed to just being like, that's how you think and this is how I think, and I know many people that think the way I think, and just those are just facts, but it's just they got to go this extra mile.
That's
and
showing
when it comes to bring it back to the dictating how people make their content, I've realized that if you do your own thing, you will dictate what other people you will undoubtedly dictate what other people do around you, because you're being
Because
like
they
an
see
example. Yeah,
you're being an authentic example, and people will what's the word I'm looking
like
for?
it or it's like it or not, they will have no choice but to react to you, because you're moving by the beat of your own drum,
Yeah,
whereas
it's a little bit like the dating market. Now suddenly you've become the alpha kind of thing. So lots of people want to kind of emulate the alpha.
I guess so, yeah. But it's just like, if you're focused on what you're doing, there's no need to dictate what other people are doing.
Right. It
And
becomes no longer it's not about a competition. This ain't a competition. And that's the other thing I was going to allude to when you're talking about this. I'm right and you're wrong. That shows you the long-term damage that we've find ourselves in now, where society has split. People find it more and more hard to have this middle ground. So it's all or nothing, black and white, right or wrong, very polarizing, pendulum swinging, one extreme to
They're
the
basically black. Yeah, like you said, black and white.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be like that. And the person who is more individualistic, who has a sense of self, will be able to deal with that better. Those who are herd mentality, who are trying to avoid accountability and things like that, will much more likely be black and white thinking. It's like either I'm being shamed or I'm being praised, or either I'm the master or I'm the victim. So we've got this master cry bullying mentality, this victim slash superiority complex going. Whereas like I'm the master, I'm the master of the slaves or something like that, where even though they've got no identity, they want the recognition, they want the praise, they want to be on that pedestal, as you're saying, Wind. But at the same time, they also want to hold on to this kind of victimhood mindset. So how can you have both dualities at this? So this is why there's like a split within the individual person, where in one hand they're a victim, in the other hand they're
they're strong and independent.
right, and they're bouncing backwards and forwards.
There's a tsunami in them.
Yeah.
And I realize, like, yeah, like there's where once a person runs out of material, they see normal people as a threat because they're slowly becoming normal. Because because they attach so much value to their formula of always appear to be powerful, always appear to be strong, don't avoid weakness, that as soon as that formula starts to get boring for them, it's all of a sudden, how can we how would it say, cattle prod the normal everyday people into becoming more interesting so that we can leech off of them more.
That's right. So yeah, there is a strong dependence because people like that with this hive mind, etc. This weakness of character. Well, they're going to have that reliance and dependency on the external world to give them the validation, to pull up their straps for them. Whereas someone who's operating by their own steam with their own kind of prerogative, they're going in their own direction. They their own effort and motivation won't need the validation of others to do the work. They'll have the self-resolve, resiliency, esteem, and all that kind of good stuff to do it for whatever reasons, typically for their own self-fulfillment. But it's more independent, quite clearly independent, compared to someone who is like dependent on a community to make them feel better. And you can hear the sentiments with the words that people like, when they're criticizing the manosphere and so vigorously. It's like, why? What would happen if the manosphere disappeared? Are you going to disappear with it? And that's the thing. They're frightened of it because it's like, yes, maybe I might disappear along with the manosphere. And it's like, that's not true. If the manosphere was gone tomorrow, are you going to cease to exist? No, you're still going to be around. But that's
the thing. Like,
problem, because now you're going to have to be on your own 2 feet and reliant on only yourself. You won't have a manosphere to hold on to.
Right, and I think there's so many people that I could think of that, are just around making content in the manosphere, but they're not attached to it. As they're not really. They like, if their channel is gone, they just get up and go to work the next day.
Yeah, the world is still going to spin with or without you in it. But that is a very scary prospect for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's almost like the more they invest in the manosphere, the more that they are kind of betting on the outcome. That it's like, what's going to collapse? They're betting on what's going to collapse first, the manosphere or society.
Well, it's an issue of control. And quite often what we'll see is that certain people like this will try to control the herd. This is where that master complex is kicking in, and they want to dictate how everyone else should act and feel and think, because essentially because they lack the self-control. They can't control themselves, So instead, they try to control other people or other communities.
Right.
And that's a problem. But unfortunately, that's how they
Well, it's kind of
got
like
into
they
the position of coping with it.
can't control a person through the screen, so they just try to tell the person, they try to give the person like negative feedback, like a Yelp
Well, yeah.
review.
Well, this is where it goes back to that shame. So you
I've seen
can't,
that, like certain
yeah,
businesses, they respond severely to Yelp, and then there's other businesses that don't care. And then
yeah,
there's a dynamic based on that. Like people who are more likely to complain are more likely to gravitate towards people who are to it's like a squeaky wheel gets the oil, like what
agree.
Yep.
Queen says.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's
Well,
pretty much how it works.
I mean, that shows you how powerful shame and guilt can be. You know, so you might not necessarily see someone, and they might be on the other side of the planet, but if you can shame them, make them feel guilty, you can control them.
Right. And it's like, which is one of the reasons why I basically made, like I said, which one of the reasons why I don't let anybody's feelings, little feelings, get up on me. That's why I'm like, screw your
Right.
feelings.
That
You know.
boundary, that having that boundaries is essential if you're going to be individualistic and have your own identity. If you don't have that boundary and you're easily shamed and made to feel guilty, then you're going to comply. You're going to conform and basically start being more and more like
But
clones of one another.
that's been the master's agenda for the past few years. As they start to lose people, is to try to make conformity into a badge of honor. And they've gotten really good at that by kind of focusing in on like certain
Yes.
they
Well, you're
just
made.
like they're
Yeah.
made to feel weak, I guess you could say. It's like
You must be so selfish, ergo, like you're a bad person for being selfish to have your own wants and needs and being individualistic. So it's wrong if you're your own man, and that's a shaming tactic. And unfortunately, it's been very effective. So these people who are got poor boundaries allow this to happen. They sacrifice, quite literally, sacrifice their individualism for the grace of conforming and being part of the herd. But unfortunately, by doing that, yes, they're getting accepted, and yes, maybe it might come across as validation. You know, it sounds like a good thing. People are rewarding you, giving you a medal for it, but you've lost your soul in the process. Now you're basically a carbon copy of the next one, and you all share this same ideology. And this is why they're, what do you call them, like NPC player people? They're all they speak in the same way. They got the same kind of patterns. They're pretty much carbon copies of one another because they've all had to conform to this same sort of ideology. If any one of them
the
starts
soul never mattered until they got into the manosphere, right? Before the
Right.
manosphere, they were blue-pilled, hedonistic. Oh, it's all about partying it up, and then now that they're in the manosphere, it's about like atoning for the sins, making up, and then like and meanwhile, some people have gotten here having made little mistakes or having like picked themselves up by the bootstraps, or they're trying to manage and they're not trying to party still, or like
They're just trying to they're just trying to make it to their day-to-day life.
the daily life.
Yeah.
And I think that gets misconstrued often because like I think you have like certain things that are just bad optics that might still be okay. Like there's a lot of like men's help kind of like help groups or committees or like
There's
anonymous
too many of them.
anonymous talkies, just like speakeasies. I don't know. It seems like forbidden, like these forbidden like hidden away rooms where men talk about their feelings and stuff. Like that stuff may be just fine, but and then like you hear about like I think one of those, the people that like was a shooter was in one of those. So it makes you wonder like what the point is of having those around and making people feel validated for whatever types of behavior they're into, and why they might be trying to shame or discourage people from highlighting that, like the flaws in that, or like I guess my overall point was like there's plenty of things, I guess, to promote instead of being negative, and instead of showing negativity to someone that's trying to hold people, that's trying to take responsibility and hold people accountable. But it's not really looked at fondly to do that, to kind of to promote, like I said, like men's health and certain things, I guess, like certain ways of like that men have tried to like get better during these times and stuff, because it's filled with a lot of really bad examples of men, or kind of just like shameful,
Terrible examples.
yeah, like Jack Murphy I'm thinking of as one.
Shoot,
You know,
just one of them. Oh man.
that one guy from Fresh and Fit, apparently he's had like he's been with more than just the females, you know.
Oh yeah.
And like I don't know, I feel like it's fractured. Like somebody said in the comments, there's like a lot of projection happening, and then for
And this is
for
protectors
people's
of the
content to be
projectors.
labeled as drama, yeah, like to be labeled as drama and starting fights or being a troublemaker. It seems like the reason why most people get involved in the manosphere is because it's hard. It was hard for them to keep trouble out of
Their
the
own
bed,
lives.
away from the dining table, away from, and this is not a place that promises to be drama free. It doesn't promise anything really. That's kind of like the freedom of being yourself, is that you don't have to you're not obligated to perform a certain duty.
Right.
And out Chronics, like Chronics Blast or Undead. D-Man. Let me know who you're talking about specifically. A degree of conformity could be a good thing. Yes, you should be respectful to people out in society, you know. I see like so many people who are like, just because they read into a law or something, they think that they're allowed to be an asshole. And it's like that's more worthy of punishment than actually breaking a law.
Yeah, we're not talking about like antisocial behavior, like
yeah, like exactly. Like I will not allow people to dictate me. It's like, well, then don't leave the house.
Right.
Actually is a the difference is being able to conform, but whilst you're still maintaining your own sense of self. So you are like an individual within a society. So that makes it much more potent in a way.
And it also makes you harder to what's the track, or not track, but harder to get pinned down when something in society doesn't work, you know?
Yeah, and then when you see these like bleeding heart conservatives who follow the law to the code, like to the letter, it's very hard for them to have any, like they're not allowed to be spontaneous, they're not allowed to be authentic, because they have to, every part of them is fighting on behalf of what is quote unquote the good or the just. And so there's very little room for them to just relax and be themselves. They're constantly have their guard up because they see themselves as like a bastion of conservative values, which is ironic because it's like for them to be so dependent on the law to dictate what a person can or cannot do to them when they're in their presence. Like it'd be like skateboarding inside of a grocery store and being like, yeah, this is a mobility device. It's like I should be able to use this because My
it's a
brain is paralyzed. I'm just that's
it's a level of sort of ego saturation or super inflated ego where you think you're above rules and laws and regulations. So if
social.
you are able to conform whilst you're maintaining your own sense of self, etc., what you're showing there is that you can put the needs of others before yourself. That you can suspend you can take your sense of self and suspend it in order to work in conjunction with those around. It's kind of like having empathy in a way and
It's
compassion.
like, yeah, it's like the difference between planting a tree that flowers, that just flowers, and a tree that bears fruit. A tree that flowers is meant to look pretty, is meant to add an aesthetic appeal because they are bred to basically grow their branches in a certain way. Plant a tree that bears fruit does not care where it grows its branches. It's doing a job of bearing fruit. So the branches they have to grow their branches in a fashion which allows them to support that fruit, which is not typically aesthetically appealing. The difference between a peach tree
Mhm. And then
and
that's
a
when
sakura
that
blossom.
goes so deep what you said because it's people think that like true growth is breaking the system and not allowing any large company to benefit and kind of subverting and being a an and yielding to avarice. You know, like this constant need at any cost to develop a profit or maintain some sort of some lead or leverage a position. So like
There
as a
might
man, you are only a man if you are making every single dollar count, and almost like the Krusty Krab. You guys remember Mr. Krabs?
Oh, money, 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 money.
more
Yeah.
simplistic. It's like there might be things that you don't like, but you're okay with that.
Mhm.
So that's pretty basic, you know.
And
It's like
if
people might want you to do things that you don't like, but you'll do them because fundamentally you're okay with it. It's not going to destroy you or something like that, you know.
right,
So you can do it.
and if you're not okay with it, you develop something. Whether within either you just eat crow or you develop something to the point where you have control over it, ultimate or have ultimate control over it. You know,
Yeah, I'm not sure
like
what it is that gives people this mindset. Like we're back again to the beginning of the talk because it's like
hey,
what about giving money to some like what about giving money to some entity or institution like StreamYard is such a like monumental slap in the face of men and sovereignty and masculinity that you would like you would try to, as it were, defecate on people that decide to use it, or for example people that decide to get into relationships. Like how much is it going to affect a person that doesn't date, that's
it does.
abstaining from that,
It
for
should.
somebody that's across the world to get into a
It
relationship.
it should.
And I know the MGTOWs are going to come out in the woodwork and hear this, and they're going to say, "Oh, you don't understand. One small, just, kiss from a simp is just a butterfly effect, and then it leads to somebody in America being locked up for
Okay.
child support."
You know, I've had people say to me,
Mhm.
you get a DNA test done for your kid. And that pisses me off because I understand what they're saying. You know, you want to find out if it's your kid, but their insistence shows me how selfish they are because I'm not the one that's requesting it or have a need to do one. They're the ones demanding I do one.
The thing is, it's
What do
like
you with that?
like I said, here's a saying: people do all sorts of things that especially the manosphere, they have zero interest in anybody but themselves. Now they may think they were caring about somebody, but
Hmm.
they're really just basically trying to, all they're doing is trying to use somebody else to prove their point instead of letting their points be proven for them.
Right. Yeah.
They're trying to get up there and use you to prove their points and change your mindset about your child.
To prove
So
their point, ultimately to make
so
themselves feel better.
right, to make
At the same
themselves
time,
feel better.
it's
To
not
make
like
them.
they're
I'm
proving.
saying,
It's not like they're proving as much as they're saying.
Right.
Like fickle kind of woman, like nah, lame, nope, not gonna work. Next, they're not. They're
Huh?
not like they're not handling any. They're not handling Wynn's ideas with going through with like a fine tooth comb. They're just listening. They're listening to the first few seconds of what you're gonna say, and they're saying, "Oh, he's talking about so and so. It's time to tune him out." Oh, I don't deal with. I'm above that.
I don't. You could. Are you really above that? Are they really above that? That's the question. What makes them above that? What makes them above that? Because I can count. I can count on. I can't even count on both of my hands and both of my feet that how many beefs that are going on besides us and besides certain sectors. So how are they above it? How are they above it by telling me by dictating what I should do on my channel, what Yam should do, or Billy, or what whoever should do on their channel? Are they really above it? Or are they saying it above it so that they can basically continue to push their little beefs, their little narratives on their situation? Are they above it?
Or
You
like
know?
how are they any different than someone that strikes a channel down if they're not willing
Exactly.
if they're not willing to say anything when somebody's channel does get struck down and they're busy talking about how, oh good, no, we should stop talking about that stuff anyways.
Right. So it doesn't make any sense that to tell me that you're above something and you're telling me not to do something. And but you're doing the same thing. You're telling me you, Yam, Tico, like you're not above it. You're a part. You're deep with. You're literally freaking elbow
oh,
deep in it.
that lack of honesty, I mean, it kind of goes with this sort of personality style. So they're lying to people, they're fobbing you off with all this superficial kind of excuses, which don't really pan out. And essentially, they're lying to you, but they're ultimately trying to fool themselves into thinking that they themselves are better in some way. So it's lying all around,
Right.
and the lack of honesty.
Like I said, these like I said, I if I
Oh,
have to
too
if
much
I have
the content creator. It's also like you got to think about these tens of hundreds of people that are listening that aren't saying anything,
right,
that aren't
it's
that
like
aren't feeling, that aren't like judging or pulling back and being like, wait, is this make sense or am I,
hey,
why?
should I be questioning this person?
Being honest.
Should I just or should I let this person just continue on their talking points? Because it's obvious that this person is either A on point or B has something mentally wrong with them.
I'll be back in a moment. I just gotta go for a lash.
All right. Like it just basically says, is this the image you want to portray? Is this the image you want to portray to your subscribers, to your fellow troglodytes, uh to your fellow scholars, to your fellow whatever, to your fellow brothers and sisters or whatever in arms, to your family in binds, family in chains, family in the trees or whatever, in the winds, your fellow tornadoes, hurricanes, potatoes, spuds, fellow goats, fellow freight trains, you know? Is this the image that you want to portray? Is this the image you want? Is this and it's Rose Blades and Tico Tran has said, is this the hill you want to die on? Is this the hill you're comfortable at dying on? Because it's if that's the hill if that's the image you want, Whatever happens, you deserve every last bit of it. You deserve every single last bit of it. You wanted it, you got it. And people fail continuously to understand it. Continuously fail. They continuously stumble. And they drag people down in it, in this image that it never ends into a never ending abyss. And by dragging these people into a never ending abyss, they drag the rest of us down. The ones who are not, who are literally, the ones who are literally going in it, the ones that are clawing out, trying to claw out of it, they get drugged down. So tell me how in the world is by all these
Like I said, just like with these companies that you shouldn't give $1 to, or else
what
you're
other choice do you got? What
you're
other choice do you got? What other choice do you have?
yeah.
You like they don't have any
There's a lot
any
of people
local
that
butchers.
there's a lot of people that didn't like Rose Blades because they claim that she was trying to get attention from the manosphere. But I find it funny
Congratulations.
that those criticisms are coming from people who make content for men in the manosphere, which gets attention from men in the manosphere. So it's like, what, it's good when it's a guy trying to get attention and trying to maintain appearances, but
What's
when
the difference?
when a girl does it, it's bad.
What's the difference?
What
What's
is
the
the what
difference?
literally what
Well, I
is
mean, like I said, when we see, yeah, like I said, when I, the way I see it is when we say it, when we say it to society, it's never good. It will never get traction. When they say it, they at least get a glance. They get a second look. So you know what? At this point, I'm not even worried about it because you know when we're saying it, we're called all this, but when they say it, they get looked at. So the way I see it is like, hey, instead of trying to shame these women, why don't we just basically use why not we just basically say, hey, we got something for you. Here, have at it. Boost it up.
No, I think Mickey got discouraged by the accountability talk.
Yeah, like I said, the way I see it is like if these women are willing to to use our talking points, hey, by all means, have
But
at it.
it's so selfish, like, and like that's it's different from being like self-preservation, because self-preservation, at least it posits that you will have to give
Even
at some point,
even
but you're
yeah,
mitigating the amount.
even
But just being selfish and
self-preservation.
just being avaricious, it's just like
It's
you're
self-deprecation.
not willing to. Yeah, it's like it's worse than shitting, or sorry, it's worse than it's worse than selling yourself short. It's like saying that you deserve every penny of what
Right. And
and
it's
I
like
get it that people have been, you know the amount of money that people have lost uh due to the courts is it's a lot, but it's also something that you decided to participate in.
yeah, that sounds strange. Could you say that again?
No, I mean, well, yeah, it's like that. It's like the way that people are so greedy over views going to women and stuff is like the family. It's like with these family courts that they suffer from. Like they do lose a lot, but
I just
they should have known that before they got into that situation.
right.
It's
People
like
are
they're
going to
not.
use
It's like
yeah,
they're aware of women only when they want to hold them accountable, but then when women are gravitating towards their channel and taking their talking points, now they're like
already
all of a
yeah.
sudden a victim and being
The way
blinded
I see it, the
and
way
checked.
I see right. The way I see it, once you put it online, anybody can use it. It's called the fair use. And the thing is, it's like if Rose Blades wants to use my talking points, go right ahead, Rose Blades. If Roma Armour wants to use my talking points, go right ahead, girl. You go ahead, girl. It's not like it's not like it's not like
Rome
it's gonna.
always busy like trolling
I don't
gas
care.
stations, and everybody in
Yeah.
their chats like or trolling drive-through windows, and everybody's like,
Right.
"Oh my God, make time for life, bro."
Right, and the funny thing about it is, if Rome go right ahead. It's not getting any talk, any points
He's
across
having
on my channel.
more fun doing this than most of them than a lot of the men are because they're just like
Right.
they're feeling so bogged down because it's like they don't make any progress and
Hey, look,
they start to give up.
like I said, eventually it will come full circle, And like I said, the way I see it is like these. If all these women want to use my talking points, go right ahead. Eventually, somebody's gonna trip over something I said on my channel, but it's not doing any good on my channel. You know, it's not. It's not. It really isn't. I mean, is it doing any? I mean, look at my subscriber count for the past 10 years. For the past. Hold on. Let's see. When did I first start YouTube? I started YouTube as a video game in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 8 years. 8 years. Past 8 freaking years. I've been on freaking YouTube. And I mean, yes, there was a time where in between where I uploaded my first YouTube video where there was a Warframe and my first Red Pill MGTOW content. But guess what? I have not, like I said, I have not hit it hasn't been till recently to where I hit the threshold of over 300. All of these videos are pretty much worthless on my channel. Every last one of these videos are completely and utterly worthless. So if a woman wants to take my videos, my content, my ideas, my talking points, by all means, I give her all the freaking power in the world. It's collecting dust on my channel. I mean, honestly, it's collecting dust. Nobody.
Isn't that a version of simping then? Like when most people put every ounce of value into their. Hold on. Like if you said that women taking your stuff is essentially them taking the bait that they won't. Good luck using whatever it is that you have. Meanwhile, men complain about the stuff that they put out being so good that women are stealing it and using it as their own. I struggle to find out which content is the most authentic and non-formulaic. If women can copy it, and they're just it's kind of like how men just put on like lipstick, and then all of a sudden they can beat up and swim against other women. It's like if women can just take your talking points, then how is it a true sense of masculinity? Or how is it becoming authentic masculinity?
I've stopped caring. I've stopped caring what it is. It's like I'm not getting, like I said, it's collecting dust. It's just like it meant men are more than welcome to it too. It's collecting dust on my channel. Like it's like my talking points. First off, is like in order to simp, you'd actually have to care. See so what is the collective? What is the collective? Hold on, wait. Give me a second.
I feel like when they post their video, they're like, "Oh my God! If anyone, I swear to God, if any woman takes any part of this, I swear to God, oh my God."
Oh yeah, no. Looks like the thing is, what is the collective thing that binds simps together, that makes simps do what they do? It's because they care. It's because they care. It's because they care. And if it's because they care, they will offer all their money, all their resources, their houses, whatever. It's because they care. Me, I don't care. It's like I don't care anymore. It's like yes, I will upload. I'm uploading just to basically fill a freaking memory bank. I upload to fill a memory bank at this point. It's not because I think I'm doing something big and magnanimous. It's just to fill a memory bank. It's just to see how many videos I can get in there. See if I can get to 500 videos. I think I'm at 500. Let's see if I get to 1,000. I don't know. I don't even know how many subscribers I have. I don't know how many videos that I've uploaded that are unlocked. And I'm beginning to lose count of how many locked videos that I have. You know? I'm beginning to lose count to how many locked videos I have. I'm not uploading for some grandiose for some grand slam reason. I'm just uploading to upload at this point. You know, at first I was uploading to try to make a difference. Now it's just like, this is like shit from. It's just to the point where it's like, hey, okay, if anybody wants to use it, it's all fair game. It's all fair game. And occasionally, I might upload because somebody's a piece of trash. You know, I might decide to make 50 videos on one person because that person's so much of a piece of trash that he to me he deserves 50 videos. You know, it's just what it is. It's like the thing that binds simps together under the same reason is because they actually care. You know, that's the only one very thing that stops me from being a simp is the fact that I care. Anything else, if we went by any other standards, like any other simp, yeah, I'd probably be a simp. Maybe. But because the number one most important catalyst is the fact is of the lack of the care or the lack thereof with coming from me, that probably puts me in a default status. You know? I'm not turning any heads with my content, that's for doggone sure. And the thing is like I don't want money, I don't want fame, I don't want status, I don't care. Look, I've been at the same rank for the past, let's see. I got out the Marine Corps in 2013 as I get my E4 promotion mailed to me. So E4, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I've been at the same rank for freaking 9 years. For 9 freaking years. Do I want power? Heck no. Because the higher you go, the more painful or the more deadly the fall. You know? The more painful or the more deadly the fall. It's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop. And if it's dark at nighttime and you don't have night vision goggles, you're going to be falling in the dark, wondering when the ground's going to hit you. You know, it's funny. It's funny. You know, that's the whole thing. And if somehow with this bleeding edge, we all somehow get over 500 subscribers or over 1,000 subscribers, oh great! Where's big celebrations? Clear the fireworks. Flip the flapjacks. Don't forget the freaking rum. Don't forget the freaking rum. The rum barrel aged maple syrup or freaking whatever red bean syrup.
The lemon
It's just
curd.
what it is.
Yeah, so this idea of people stealing content or using content or whatever, I actually see a lot of this, but in a different kind of format or style.
Mhm.
As many of you already know, I spend quite a bit of time in the sort of the so-called healing and recovery and trauma and therapy sort of department or whatever. And you get a lot of people now proclaiming they are healing, that they're doing the inner work and things like this. And you can tell that it's a load of baloney. Like the last
Yeah.
video I saw was a woman in her car, and she was like, oh, you better watch out because I'm now healing and I'm not someone you should be messing with and all this sort of stuff. I'm not the same person as I used to be.
Yeah,
Like,
you go. You
Oh,
got
how,
this one.
watch out.
yeah,
Everybody beware.
yeah,
Again, they want to put everybody on notice.
right. I mean, that's just someone's testimony, but you'll have people who are actually trying to be therapists saying, we'll help you with the healing and the recovery and stuff like that. But they're using these talking points. They're learning about subjects of like narcissism, for example, and they're weaponizing it. It's like the PUA who's pretending to help you pick up a date, but really, especially if it's a female PUA,
Those are
but
the best.
really they're promoting how to manipulate men or how to trap or entrap a man, how to vet, but in a kind of abusive manner. Like, is he going to do everything you say? Well, then go off and kind of thing. Or make sure your man will do as you say, and this will reflect your status as a superior woman kind of thing. And it's like, this isn't healthy. This is toxic behavior, abusive behavior, and it's corrupting the information that they're stealing. They corrupt it, they mutate it, they circumvent it and manipulate it into some sort of lucrative, weaponize it to profiteer from it. And that really, that kind of agitates me, that annoys me, because that's not how it should be. However, the way I look at it, like, because sometimes I don't want to say like I battle with myself, but I wonder how much information to put out there, because in the wrong hands, it can do a lot of damage. But there'll always be a kind of footnote that no matter how much these chameleons and these wolves in sheep clothing try to take information to better equip themselves with their arsenal of weapons, they'll always be behind. And like you said, when if they're not careful, quite often it will eventually backfire. It will come back and haunt them in a way. So that gives me a little bit of reassurance and peace of mind, where it's kind of like I don't have to necessarily hold back in consciously anything I particularly want to say. I mean, there's plenty of like stuff that I have private or what privatized for a later date kind of thing, but I'm not having to consciously be selective exactly. As you guys know, I like to go in depth with our discussions as much as possible with the amount of time that we have. But I'm not in fear of what's being put out, because anyone who wants to take this information and try and corrupt it, they'll be in a spot of bother later on. Usually if they're going to take my stuff, it means it's kind of like you're going to have to take a lot of other stuff with it, and essentially you're going to basically sound exactly like me. So it'll probably be quite easy to spot someone using my work, for instance, because they'll have to go on a long explanation of the talking points that I bring up.
That's if like what they do, if it makes them stronger to use your talking points, there'll be a clear like change in who they are, or
Right.
maybe I'm switching it
Not
around.
to sound too big-headed, but I've got my style, as it were. So it's like just taking a couple of sound bites and using probably you'll have to take the whole stream worth and duplicate it, and then you just basically sound like a version of me. But also they run into the problem where it can become self-exposing. Like it would have to be done by someone with good intent, because someone who's trying to be manipulative who is pointing out manipulative behaviors, to say like the conversation is about how people can be manipulative. If they're not careful, they'll quite easily expose themselves. Now they might actually not have the self-awareness to realize they're actually doing it, but then that's where it's going to come back and bite them on the butt, because they're just proving themselves to be a fraud.
Yeah. Well, they don't want to teach anybody
Also
what they
another
from you. They just want the esteem from what you said, but they don't want anybody to be like privy to what it is that you're talking about. They still want that authority, but they realize that they've rented out
yeah
that authority
it's,
from
yeah
somebody.
it's like they want people to be bounded or binded, so they want people to listen to the melody but not the words, not to actually integrate what's being said. So they want to be like passive listeners and be sung to sleep like an infant. So they want a nursery hymn, rhyme, whatever, to lull them into a nice cozy sleep, to make them feel more comfortable, and in turn feel better and feel good and feel safe and secure. And there's another ultimate kind of problem when, for whoever is trying to steal content, because they become dependent on whoever it is who the originator of that content. So let's say, like with Wind, they're trying to quite literally duplicate absolutely everything. Well, they'll always be one step behind Wind, because they'll be waiting for Wind. Like, what happens once they've caught up with him? They got to wait for Wind to take the next step, make a new video for them to then be able to copy it. Like if Wind suddenly turned around and said, right, I retire, I quit, I'm not going to do any more.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh.
Or myself, let's say they're copying me like literally every word, and they're trying to mirror me exactly. But then I turn around and say, right, I quit, I retire, I'm not going to do any more. Now what are they going to do? Especially if they've built up a following group who are waiting for their next video. So this copycat will always be basically people who copy always live in the shadow of people who are pioneering or going their own way or doing their own thing, because they're always make logical sense. Like if you're copying someone, you have to wait till that original person's actually done something for you to copy it, and that'll probably irk them as well, because it's like they're not able to do their own work, and there'll be that jealousy and envy that they're having to battle with. So
yeah,
there will always be that kind of problem for people who are just copying. I mean, the thing is, they might find someone else to copy from then at that point, but again, they're basically forever living in other people's shadows without their own body of work or their own self being developed in any way, shape, or form. So it's not something to be envious of. It might seem like an easy shortcut in life, but as we should already know, that taking the shortcuts in life most usually don't pan out very well.
That's what it is. I mean, most of the manosphere, they want to give young people some sort of like a loophole to where they don't really have to experience heartache or depression, or like they think that like by working out and just like saving up money, like that's going to solve all of your problems. And it's just like, I think it's very like disingenuous, because it's just like like you sort of want to experience a lot of like conflict or adversity up front in life, so that like, because it really later in life it's going to be really tough if you haven't really encountered a lot of problems and able to solve your way through them.
Well, that's what kind of pisses me off, pardon my language, but that's what annoys me a lot with the copycat, or
and like you cited some pretty severe examples of it, but to me, like I don't necessarily acknowledge that the people that copy every word that comes out of somebody's mouth, but the sentiment of let's avoid drama. I hear that all the time. I hear that from literally everybody in the manosphere. Let's avoid drama. So like, if people can't wrap their head around just copying somebody,
there's two things that kind of aggravate me where you've got a particular content creator who is using other content creators, like their talking points, their sentiments, their ideas, or whatever. So they might be repeating, like, "Look, we don't want drama," for an
Right.
example.
But yet,
But
yet in a sense.
also, but they're all, and you know, and like I said earlier, that they're living in the shadow. They're following whatever direction other people are going in because they don't want to be abandoned and on their own. They're trying to moonlight in their shadow or bask in their shadow or whatever. But they're also using their viewership in a similar kind of way. So basically, these types of people are just users. They use other content creators and they use their own followers. And if their followers are young, impressionable minds that are looking for guidance, you know, like help us, lead us, not well, but it might not literally be like lead us a great one, but you know, like uh like give us some guidance. We're young, you're an older, maturer, supposedly maturer channel with insight and wisdom, so we're going to listen and follow your words. But this content creator has no real in, like, it's so selfishly orientated, doesn't give an F about what happens to the younger viewers, or any of the viewers for that matter. So there's no responsibility, like what we were saying earlier about being like on the bleeding edge. Like, there is a level of accountability and responsibility here where we have to be careful we're not misguiding people down a treacherous sort of path. Maybe it might happen by accident, but we don't do it intentionally trying to con people like con artists or tricksters. Whereas these people, these shadow demons, these shadow
Wow.
demon content creators,
The worst
We're not here.
you can do, worst thing you can do is like you hear something on the bleeding edge and you're like, oh, that reminds me of a content creator that I follow. I'm gonna unfollow them. I'm gonna unsubscribe to them. Or
And then they're wondering why I'm losing, why am I hemorrhaging subscribers?
or maybe the opposite effect, you know, maybe I should pay closer attention to what so and so says now because maybe he's trying to manipulate me or something. Either way, not really disastrous consequences from that. Like
Right.
that's pretty much the extent. I mean, if you're really, really feeble, then maybe you take something so personally that's been said and you kind of like maybe you kind of go in on yourself then.
well, this I think,
Get
I
the,
mean, uh, from what I gather with the bleeding edge, I mean, this is kind of like, it's to sort of try and push like the critical thinking. So yes, it might ruffle up a few feathers. It might sound personal. People might
not
take
an attack
it.
though.
Yeah.
It's literally just, I mean, like you if you categorize, if you just go ahead and we write down a list of what we consider an attack and what we consider to be just a critical take on something,
Yeah.
like most of the bleeding edge falls under that. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. Some people do end up getting attacked while they're on here, like Jack Murphy's, and
Yeah. Yeah.
he
But,
got attacked because
but
he asked for it. You know,
yeah.
he's basically asked for it.
But I don't think it's as simple as, like, you know, we're just having like a dig or an attack. It usually has a kind of like a Pandora's box effect, where it's like, what's really going on behind either the behavior or what's motivating the so-called attack, or our attention being drawn towards this event or situation which is being perceived as an attack. So it kind of opens it up into more philosophical sort of levels, if possible. Anyway, that's how I'd like to think it kind of unfolds. Because I don't think the bleeding edge is a simple, when it's at times like that, it's not really just a simple bashing. You know, it
Well,
needs explanation,
it'd
needs
Right.
presented
investigation.
evidence. It's like if I presented evidence and it did in fact injure a case that was being made, then it's totally it's totally within reason to discard that case, or to as a judge would typically determine that if it's not like if the case isn't sound, then you shouldn't like really acknowledge any part of it, especially if it's built
Right.
on So it's just like, but like if people aren't willing to let go of their case and they want to hold on to it, they can appeal it, but then
Right.
maybe be on the next bleeding edge. Maybe it'll bring it back up on the next bleeding edge. It's sort of like a cross examination of like a lot of the different
Yeah.
cases.
I mean, that's why
Yeah.
I think anyway,
Testing.
like you guys sort of have like trolling trolls or other kind of chat panel chat streams that if you wanted to take it that direction, you know, you can discuss it over there instead.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, what are we looking like on time for you, Yam?
155, good to go. There was I had my topics I was bringing, but we kind of covered them in the stream, like the mindset, the abundance mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all topicked out. Those are some real topics. When you did a pretty good job setting the stream up.
I tried. I mean, I tried my best. You know, I mean, this is my first time setting up a bleeding edge.
You're gonna have people saying, "Can we trust Wind now with the show, leading the show?"
Hey,
oh, maybe Wind's setting you up.
I ain't setting nobody up. I just basically just think about some of the things that have been going on and things that need to be said. You know, if you don't like if you don't like what it said, it's what it is. You're just not gonna like it. You're just gonna have to live with
I didn't know you chose the topics, Wind. Good job on it, man.
it. Hey, look, those topics hit close to home for me. So
for a lot of people, and they're important topics as well.
Like I said, if I'm gonna go for a topic, like I say, it's good. I'm gonna make sure it either hits home or basically comes in with a sledgehammer and just basically breaks the door down. I mean, I ain't too shy in breaking my own door down to fix a problem. You know,
we love that about you, Billy. Oh, first Rifle and Cypher, and the rest of the people out there. Always more than welcome on the stream. Said you couldn't make it this time, but we always have the door open, as it were, for you guys.
Got a seat for you.
Billy, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me on the panel.
Yes, Tipman 98 custom. You are clear for takeoff. Your engine, your idea engine is humming like, you know, humming something, is whistling Dixie. You're sounding, you're clear for takeoff. The rest of you guys, hope you enjoy the show. You enjoyed the show.
Like you. I would like to thank. I would like to thank JR, D-Man, Jim, Mr. McIntosh,
Dan King,
Dan King, and even Mickey Farley for showing up. You know, I appreciate the participation of the algorithm. Black Wolf, definitely. Black Wolf.
Good to see you,
Mickey Farley.
Jim,
Mirror Wrench too, by the way.
Yeah, and since I started this, I'm gonna do the Inner Tico, the channel the Inner Tico for the group. Treat yourself like milk. Do nothing but spoil yourself. It doesn't matter if you consider yourself a kukri, a banana, sitting in a hammock, just chilling, looking at the palm trees and the night sky. Like, do nothing but spoil yourself.
I like the music.
Oh, like I said, don't forget the hola hola and adios. Anybody else with the outros? That's it. All right. Now it's time for exit music. I do like that song. I'm at the experiment whenever I'm getting aggressive.
want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Sue's perfections, ooh, Sin City, Montana, Coke Boy, ooh, we run the city. Homie tryna keep up, ooh, they going broke. I'll finish your career, ooh, get a rope.
Warning, 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 warning.
Dope money. Ooh,
That Montega,
in the spot getting guap. Ooh,
that's hard labor.
in the club popping bottles.
Yeah, we blowing that sour.
Handful of real niggas.
Rest of these niggas cowards.
How you want it?
How you want it?
Hands, gun, or the knife.
Soon as your man see the barrel,
He gon' run for his life.
bullets flying.
Bullets flying.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, everyone. Y'all have a wonderful evening.